what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. It is our last recorded episode of 2024, Chris. We are here together in the podcast studio for the last time before we roll the calendar over to 2025. So we're getting in our last episode. How are you doing on this last 2024 episode? How are you doing today? Holiday season, movies everywhere around us. How are you?
Unfortunately, I still have a little bit of holiday shopping to do. That is a bit of
movie watching is more important than holiday shopping,
true.
Chris. People, you can get gifts for people later.
And maybe if I had not spent 2 hours of my time yesterday watching Transformers 1 and instead had headed to the mall and that headache that induces, maybe I wouldn't be where I am with gift buying. But as it is, I did sacrifice 2 hours of my time to watch Transformers 1, which made our North Carolina Film Critics Association ballot, and I, exercise my right to vote.
You have to watch them all,
right?
That's Pokemon.
Pokemon catch them all or collect them all. Yeah, right.
Transformers, you don't have to catch them all. That's a whole different thing. But you did watch the Transformers 1 movie.
Yes,
so I will be watching it because I am also like you. I feel an obligation that. If the film is on the nominations, the balloted list for our North Carolina Film Critics Association, I feel the need to have to watch it. So I was eagerly anxious to see when those nominations came out to see how many of the films have I already seen. And luckily, like 95% of them, I'm like, sure. Awesome, great.
Which it did give me the excuse to finally catch up with The Wild Robot. So check.
Okay, good. So you see a few others there in there. So I've got a couple docs, a couple foreign films, and a couple animated to kind of fill in my week here before we have to send our ballot off on the 29th to choose our favorites. That'll be an exciting time. Here on this podcast, this is our last episode of 2024. The next time we get together to record, it is going to be our best of 2024 year because we would have completed our ballot. We're going to feel very good about our choices by that point. So we will announce on this episode, yours and mine, favorite films of 2024, our favorite performances of 2024, as well as couple of films that maybe a film that didn't quite hit it for us was a bit of a disappointment and maybe our biggest surprise from 2024. We're going to cover all those at our next episode. But Chris, I'm getting ahead of myself. We do have some important films to talk about today. We have two films to review. First up is going to be the Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown, starring Mr. Timothy Chalamet. Then we'll be reviewing Babygirl, the latest film starring Nicole Kidman, and I forgot Harris Dickerson. I knew his name right on the top of my
Antonio Banderas too.
Oh yeah, Antonio Banderas is in this as well.
Yeah.
We'll be reviewing those two films back to back. Then after those two reviews, I've got a few trailers I want to share with Chris of films that are coming up. We haven't done trailers in a little while. We've been kind of consumed with films that are being released now. Sure. But there are some interesting films that are coming out next year, and we've got a few trailers to talk about those and see what everybody's thoughts on those films are. So that's our episode, Chris. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here's our first review, which is the film A Complete Unknown.
I want to tell you a little story. A few months back, my friend Woody Guthrie and I, we met a young man. He dropped in on us out of nowhere and he played us a song. In that moment, we got a feeling we were getting a glimpse of the future.
Biopics. Love them or loathe them, they seem to be a given as Oscar season approaches. Films about famous musicians or a specific subset of the genre that are especially popular as studios figure, hey, they'll have a guaranteed audience of the subject's fan base. We've had The Doors, Ray, Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, Maestro, and Walk the Line. I mentioned Walk the Line that focused on Johnny Cash last because it was also directed by James Mangold, who has now directed today's A Complete Unknown about Bob Dylan. And because it also influenced the satirical biopic Walk Hard, which spun comedic gold from the familiar tropes of the biopic genre. What was your experience watching A Complete Unknown, Alan? What did you make of Chalamet's performance as Bob Dylan? And did you find the film able to break the confines of the paint-by-numbers structure that Walk Hard mocked?
All right. You gave me
a couple
three
different questions there.
I think there was 3 questions there. What did I think of it? It was fine.
It was
What
fine.
did I think of Timothy Chalamet's performance? He was fine.
So
Did it break the barriers?
two fines.
Yeah, did it break the barriers of the standard biopic formula? Not really, but I was okay with that.
Okay.
Okay, so let me back up and explain each of those pithy short answers. This movie is fine, and I hate using that word fine, but I don't know of another word to get this across. It did the job I wanted it to do, in that I'm not the biggest Bob Dylan fan.
Okay.
So I needed a film that let me in a little bit to the Bob Dylan world.
Okay.
And it let me in just enough to build a little more appreciation for his music, understand a little bit more about him as a person, but not so much that I felt like Bob Dylan works in mystique so much of his career. So I like the fact that the movie let that mystique exist and didn't feel the need to, okay, we're going to explain everything about Bob Dylan. You're going to hear his backstory. You're going to know exactly where he's come from. I like the fact that the film's like, nah, you don't really need to know all that. You need to know what people around him are seeing of Bob Dylan, and that's what the film is here to show. So I was okay with that. And I think it did it fine. I don't think there was anything extraordinary about this film. I don't think there was anything that causes me to want to go back and revisit it for any reason. It was fine in the way it presented this information to give a little bit of insight, just enough into the character of Bob Dylan. The thing I will say that I think the film excelled in, that biopics I think sometimes don't always do as well with, musical biopics, is it did let the music breathe.
Okay.
So the music performances I thought were really good, and they let them play out. It wasn't all montages and quick clips of songs and all that. It's like, no, when you see him perform on stage, you get to see a song being performed. And I'm like, that was great. That was really nice. So performance-wise and the music-wise, I thought the film was really good. Everything outside of that, it was a little paint by numbers. I was okay with the fact that it didn't decide to go any deeper than it did on anything. I wish there was more riveting, invigorating about this film, and there just wasn't. I just didn't really get any of that from it. Timothy Chalamet's performance, he did the job. I'll give him that. Could somebody else have been better? Possibly. But I think he did a serviceable job. Did I answer? Was that all the questions? you asked?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's where I am with this.
Okay.
It was fine, and I use fine in a slightly leaning positive tone than I do a slightly negative leaning tone. Fine meaning, yeah, it did the job. It was okay. I didn't feel like there was a lot to champion out of this film, but yeah, it was okay. All right, that's my really weak review there, Chris. I'm sorry, I don't have a whole lot more to go into with that.
No,
Chris, let me turn it over to you though. I think you're a little more Bob Dylan fan than I am.
I mean, possibly.
Okay, so maybe that affects your review of the film. Anyway, go right ahead. Tell me
Yeah.
what you think.
Okay, so I hear everything you're saying, and I can see. I kind of, as film people that watch a lot of movies, we've discussed a lot of biopics here on the show. I feel like that, and the whole paint by numbers criticism. I feel like that. I understand why that's lobbed, because after you see so many of these films, you're kind of like, oh, great. Here's one about Bob Dylan. Or, I totally forgot the one Elvis that we had. There have just been so many of them recently. And it usually means the person who plays the titular, the big star, the famous singer, is going to get nominated. Austin Butler, it happened with him, Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody. So all that said, what it comes down to for me was I'm not really, unless I have no idea about who this person is, which I know who Bob Dylan is. I do like a lot of his songs, but I don't really know a whole lot about him as a person other than like, I know that his real name is Bob Zimmerman. I did know that. I know that he has a son, Jacob Dylan, but I know very broad strokes. But I did know, kind of like you're saying, I remember Martin Scorsese did a documentary a couple of years ago. It's like the Rolling Thunder Review, and it talks about Bob Dylan, and he's interviewed, air quotes around that, in the documentary, but it shows a lot of historical footage. And I kind of got a sense, and I remember reading at the time, like some of the stuff Bob Dylan says when he's speaking is completely fabricated.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got like, okay, this guy, he's kind of unknowable. And so going in, I'm kind of not expecting to learn, which usually you and I say that, like if we want to learn something, we watch a documentary, which would be hard to do on him anyway. But if we want to see just like a direct, so what I got out of this, I wasn't expecting, I had the advantage, like, okay, this guy's kind of mysterious. I'm not expecting to learn anything. But what I was hoping to get, and what I feel like I really got, you touched on, and maybe I'm a little bit more enthusiastic because I like some of his music, were the scenes with the music.
Yeah.
And I'll call out, I thought Timothée Chalamet, as much as you can do somebody, like how do you portray an elusive figure? Well, I thought he did a good job. I think, with today's skill level and when you have a budget of this kind, the hair, the sunglasses, his clothes, his vocal inflection, like I thought he did a good job of, but not doing it into a caricature of his voice, but I thought he did a good job of doing Bob Dylan and singing stuff. Yeah. I mean, the trailer that, they had shown in theaters of it shows him singing like a Rolling Stone, because I think that's where the line of Complete Unknown is like wedged in that song, so it makes sense they would use that in the trailer. But I thought he did great.
Okay.
Especially in the singing scenes, which I think I've heard a rumor, or not rumor, but I think I heard that supposedly they were filmed like concert scenes.
Yeah,
so like,
I could buy that.
So like he supposedly, I think is really singing. But I want to give equal credit to Monica Barbara, who plays Joan Baez, because I thought she was really good in the film. And whenever she was with him singing, she, for me, actually managed to steal the spotlight. And I think it's because, and it may be by design a little bit, which I want to give the film credit for. One of the things I definitely want to call out for the film is that she is willing to be Joan Baez, and then by extension, Monica Barbaro, more like vulnerable and open and honest about who she is. And so, and her voice is amazing in the film. So she was like more magnetic to me, and the push and pull between her and Bob Dylan was interesting. And that's something I did know a little bit about because we watched a documentary with our film society about Joan Baez, and she mentions Bob Dylan. And, but their whole kind of like side arc, or Monica or Barbara's Joan Baez, her kind of arc through the film, and the culmination at one point of how they, after they've had a falling out, they then reunite on stage at the Newport Folk Festival. And kind of that back and forth. I thought that was just like, okay, that was interesting for me to see. Now, was that exactly how it played out? I don't know. Yeah. But the staging of it, I thought was really well done. And I enjoyed like getting to see like, okay, this is how but then they come together and they still managed to make magic on stage. So that was satisfying. And I guess too, I did have, and it provided a good enough, fun for me. The whole build-up, and I knew the build-up was about him going electric, and I knew
same Newport
right.
Music
and
Festival,
I knew the very little I know about Bob Dylan. I know that when he did that ticked a lot of people off. So the whole film, I'm like building up. I'm like, okay, I know that's what he's going to do. They show him working in a little bit, which okay, again, I got just enough stuff that kept the musical stuff was awesome. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
The key phrase there you're saying is just enough. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just enough to escape the criticism of, by the numbers. Yeah, I'm not saying like when you're doing somebody's life and they want to hit like ups and downs. I didn't really feel like, I guess if you're going to say, there wasn't a particular down that I really felt like they tried to hit on. They just kind of basically all. But there was enough interesting stuff that I didn't know for instance, I cannot remember the actor's name. He was on Ozark. He is in this film very briefly, but he plays the keyboardist that apparently, if the film's to be believed,
Oh, right.
in the recording session for like a Rolling Stone, I think he wanted to be a guitarist, but he shows up and he's like, nope, the guitar's how I feel. But he like starts messing around with the keyboard and they let him do the keyboard for the song, in theory, like a Rolling Stone. And like the strident keyboard on that, supposedly that was him like trying to make his presence known. And like now whether or not this is true, I don't know, but it was intriguing enough from a movie standpoint to be like, oh, that's awesome. Because the song starts and he's like really loud and forefront, and Dylan's kind of like, huh, okay. Like, he's kind of like acknowledging like, okay, yeah, this guy's trying to make it, but he doesn't like push him down. He kind of, I guess he sees the creative, like, okay, yeah, we're creating something here, and he kind of admires it. Plus, I guess he knows, maybe in his mind, the whole thing, yes, with this album, with my next performance in New Fork Folk Festival, I am pushing myself forward. Yeah. I am not Mr. Balladeer anymore. I'm a rock and roller. I'm leaving the folk scene. So that was fun for me to see. Something else not really aware of, and it is a trope of biopics, or it can be a trope not just of biopics, but movies in general. The bookends, and not necessarily, they weren't as sharply in contrast to bookends, but what I'm referring to is Bob Dylan, which I was not aware of. I guess I should have been maybe, but his relationship with Woody Guthrie, which in this film is portrayed by Scoot McNairy. Yeah. And I thought he did an awesome job, even though he doesn't really get to say anything.
He didn't get to say much, yeah.
But apparently, from what I may have learned from the film, if it's true, Bob Dylan had an interesting relationship with Woody Guthrie, where he was at a very young age. Bob Dylan got to meet him. Woody Guthrie was in the hospital. He was ailing. And apparently, if there again, a cool moment that I thought was, at first I was like, okay, even if there are no other cool performances in this film, Bob Dylan, in theory, having to perform on command for Woody Guthrie a song. Yeah. And then not only that, but a song that he had written for Woody Guthrie. He's like, okay. And he like plays a song. I love that. And that there's no crowd. It's just Timothy Chalamet trying to sing this song. Yeah. And I thought it was, and there again, I guess benefit too, which is strange. All the other songs that are performed in the film, I basically knew. Right. This song, I'd never heard. Sure. So I'm sure Bob Dylan fans probably do know this song. I did not. So for me, it was extra cool because A, I liked the song, and then the context they were putting it in. Now, is that completely fabricated? Don't know. But as a movie magic moment, it totally worked for me.
Him going to the hospital is not fabricated. So he did go to the hospital supposedly when he got into town.
And did meet him.
And meet him. Whether or not Pete Seeger was there also at the same time. Right. And all that might have been a little convenient stitching. But
we'll get to Pete Seeger here in a second, portrayed in the film by Ed Norton. So I really liked that. And then kind of the relationship kind of returning at the end of the film. And like there's some, I kind of liked kind of the interesting, if it's maybe a little bit of hero worship on Woody Guthrie by Bob Dylan. Specifically, it helped me think, okay, maybe this person is real, because Bob Dylan, there's so much unknown about it. But the fact, like, no, this is somebody he admires, and he's actually being respectful and caring for somebody who's kind of towards maybe the end of his life and, struggling. Because I'll say this about the film, which is something I admire about the film. Again, I came away from the film I think it's easy for biopics to put someone on a pedestal. And I don't feel like they did that with Bob Dylan, because they show that he, kind of does what he wants. His relationship with Ed Norton in the film, and he plays Pete Seeger. And kind of the way he, Pete Seeger helps him get his start, but then there's kind of tension between them, especially as the New Fork Folk Festival, where he's going to be going electric, kind of happens. And you can tell he admires Pete Seeger, but yet there's tension there. And I can see Bob Dylan as him being an artist, he's an artist and he wants to grow and do all that. But I still felt like the film didn't just give him a pass on that and made him maybe kind of jerky at times, especially how you can consider his relationships with Elle Fanning, who plays Sylvia Russo. And then we already talked about Joan Baez, Monica Barbaro. Maybe womanizing, not really sure there. They don't hit that too, but it's just like, I don't feel like they make him out to be this complete angel.
Oh, no,
and
absolutely.
that helped me like the film better because it was just more of like this is stuff happening. This is how people, like you said, are reacting to him. And I appreciated it for that. So I guess I'm probably, it sounds like from everything I've just said, more positive on the film than you are. But, you know, you said, I don't think it's like some monumental achievement. Like, I'm not going to go, so I wouldn't say it's like, you know, memorable for like, oh, picture of the year or anything like that. But I do appreciate it just because it allowed me to attend a Bob Dylan concert in theory from that time frame that I felt like was a really fascinating time for music. So I've never been able to see Bob Dylan live. So this was my chance to see somebody pretending to be Bob Dylan live and also during this time period. So I don't know. I think if you're a Bob Dylan fan, you may like the film or you may not like it because you struggle with not learning anything new. And you think it was just a very, you know, by the numbers thing, which I guess if you're wanting a non by the numbers, a film we talked about a long time ago, I'm Not Here by Todd Haynes. Is that the name of the bill? Yeah.
I'm Not There.
I'm Not There. There we go. If you're wanting something that's really unique and all this kind of stuff, then yeah, that's the film you want to check out. But if you're wanting more of a standard, which, you know, I still thought I think, you know, based on the track record of James Mangold, he directs films that I'm generally positive on. Ford versus Ferrari, Walk the Line, Logan, you know, all these things. Yeah, I'm generally positive. And so it's not like it's earth shattering, but it's, and I guess I would go a little bit more than fine because I guess I had a little bit better time than fine. But I understand your commentary of just fine. And you said slightly on the positive side of fine.
Slightly on the positive. Chris, that was the longest I've ever heard you talk in a continuous stream. So there must have been a lot working in the movie more than you maybe expected.
That's true. Yeah, coming out of the movie, you know, it was able, and that's the other thing. I have, you know, it's been a little bit of breathing room since I've screened the film, but immediately coming out of the film, it was one of the ones that I would have said, oh yeah, I could turn around. This comes out Christmas Day. I could turn around and probably see this film. I wouldn't walk right back into the theater, but I could see this film again in a theater because it was an enjoyable experience. Okay. Like if somebody over the holidays was like, hey, this is coming out, let's go see it. And I'll be like, okay. And I would enjoy seeing it again because especially seeing it in the theater with the sound and everything, and with the crowd was fun. So yeah, I guess I could tell from your reaction that you weren't as, you know, enthralled with it.
No, it was, again, I keep coming back to the word fine because I don't know another word to use for it. I mean, it's just, it did the minimum I felt like it needed to make this work without falling into all of the stereotypes of a typical biopic. Although it did have some, I mean, I will say, I thought
tropes are tropes for a reason.
The first half of the film was much stronger than the second half. I felt like the second half, I was really impressed with the women characters. Elle Fanning's playing Sylvia Russo, kind of his first girlfriend. She's on the cover of the freewheeling Bob Dylan album with him. And then you've got Monica Barbaro, as you already mentioned, as Joan Baez, who I thought both of them were really good. I'm afraid both of them became a little more than tropes in the latter part of the film, which I didn't like. Both of them spent a lot of times.
I think that's factual, though.
Well,
as far like they became sidelined because they became sidelined.
No, it's not sidelining. It's the fact that when the shots you get of them are them either longingly looking from backstage at Bob Dylan, or you got Elle Fanning Sylvia, who in the first half of the film is a very strong, powerful woman with her relationship and confident in who she is, but then they turn her into a crying, running away because she thinks Bob. I mean, I get Bob is philandering. He is having an affair, and it is hurtful and all that. But the way they portrayed Sylvia in the second half of the film, I thought I
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
it made the women. We have to fit them into this story, and they have to be affected by Bob Dylan as opposed to having their own agency, which I thought was a real problem. So I thought those two kind of fell apart by the end, those two roles.
And I guess, I hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And I think, the way they depicted it, but it made me, I was like, and I said I was appreciating it because it gave the warts and all view of Dylan.
Oh, yeah.
And so it made me like, the way that happened with her, getting teared up and kind of running away. Maybe not the best way to show that.
Right.
But I was like, that makes me not like Bob Dylan.
No,
I can tell he's talented.
No,
but
my criticism has nothing to do with how they portrayed Dylan.
I understand.
I think the portrayal of Dylan was pretty accurate and pretty fair. Unfortunately, it's just when you get to the biopic, you've got to kind of the trap is to turn your lead into a mythical character, and I feel like that's what it was doing by the end with the whole electric performance. And the way that the two women in his life were kind of reacting to him in those days, that's when it started to fall into a little bit of that biopic formula format that I didn't care for. So the movie was pretty good about not leaning into a lot of conveniences, which a lot of biopics do. Is like, how convenient was it that these two people met in this way or got connected? The film played pretty authentically, and I thought it felt natural, and the times it had to weave in some conveniences, it was not distracting, and it worked for the storytelling. So overall, I'm good. I am good. I wish it had been more. That's the best way I could say it. I wish it had been more for me to grab a hold of outside of just the music, but the music itself was enough to justify my support of the film. So the music performances.
So something. So we agree on the music performances. I think there was more. The things that you're wishing was more. I feel like I was able to get more. So I think that's why I'm higher on the film. And that I'll bring it back to somebody that I made passing reference to, Ed Norton's portrayal of Pete Seeger. And this is bringing baggage from, unfortunately, that you hear about Ed Norton as an actor. I've always liked him. I hear sometimes he can be like hard to work with because he's very, I don't know, opinionated about how he wants to do things. And I don't know if that's true or not because I'm not on set, not familiar with him, don't know him personally. But seeing Ed Norton portray Pete Seeger was very satisfying for me because I feel like it was a strong performance, yet he's not the focus of the film. So it's for him to be a supporting player in this film, I really enjoyed seeing him do a supporting performance. Yeah. Also, the way in which he depicts Pete Seeger, I feel like was kind of an interesting balancing act. I know very little about Pete Seeger. I recognize the name. My wife is funny because she confused it with the other Seeger who does night moves.
Oh, Bob Seeger.
Right. And I was like, nope, this is Pete. She's like, oh, right.
We joke. We had that. Yeah. That when the trailer came out, I think you were the one who got confused thinking it was Bob Seeger. Yeah.
Right. So, probably so.
Very good.
I've made the
nice
same
to know
confusion.
It runs in your family.
Yes,
so there's
apparently
confusion there.
But so with Pete Seeger, again, something I give to the documentary, his reaction, they show him as kind of the flag standard bearer for folk music. And, he's kind of helping Woody Guthrie in the later times of his life and kind of, he's tight with Woody Guthrie. And then he sees Bob Dylan's helping Bob Dylan. And he's, Jen Baez is also, friends with her. And, however, his not painting him as just there again, putting him up on a pedestal, his resistance to any type of change in theory to the Newport Folk Festival, and then his reaction when Dylan goes ahead and goes electric. Now, whether or not Pete Seeger actually tried to shut off the sound system or whatever, don't know. But the willingness to kind of do that with the legacy of that event to make a good or to make better than average, I guess, biopic for me. Like those were interesting things that added texture to the film that I enjoyed.
Okay.
So,
no, I thought Ed Norton was good as Pete Seeger. Pete Seeger, not someone I know a lot about, so any introduction to him as a person is great. Yeah, and I thought it worked. I was surprised by. I mean, again, the movie could have very easily leaned into, if it wanted to fabricate a little bit to make it a quote, Hollywood biopic. You could have created a little more animosity between Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan by the end of the film.
Right.
But they didn't. I mean, they
Right.
had their moments, but yet, they still ended with Pete Seeger. I think one of the last shots we see of him is he's still looking very admirably and longingly at Bob Dylan and recognizing his talent.
He recognizes
And,
his talent. He's not
Yeah.
agreeing with what he's doing, but
Right.
he's recognizing it.
And I thought that was a nice touch to at least, I mean, I was really fearful it was going to turn into a whole, and now they're just completely split and they're at odds with each other. And it could have gone that way if it wanted to fabricate that. But I think this was more authentic to how it really was.
And I liked also, if I'm going to, another trope of biopics, or just, biopics and biopics of musicians, the text they put up on screen when you've gone to credits, it didn't forget the other members of the film. It mentions Joan Baez. It says how she went on to have all this success and albums. It doesn't come. It talks about how we're not going to fabricate that Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan never talked to each other. Nope.
Yeah.
It says that they did reunite for a performance to raise some money. So I like that it did try to say, bring some truth facts there at the end. So it was. I think it was pretty good. That's my pretty good.
I will give out a
That's
call
my pull
out of a
quote.
scene I did think. I mean, all of the music performances I thought were really good, but there was one scene in particular. It's probably my favorite scene of the film. Pete Seeger is hosting a TV show.
Okay.
And it's kind of an interesting scene in that they're expecting that Bob Dylan is going to show up as kind of a guest, and then Bob Dylan's really hot and big at the time. So it's like that would have been a really big thing to have him on the show.
Absolutely.
You can tell there's a little bit of nervousness that Bob's not there. So it's like, all right, we got to kind of keep going with the show. It's like a PBS public access show about music that Pete's doing.
Right.
But then Bob Dylan does show up, but he's also there with another performer who was already on the show. And just their interaction, their dialogue, the kind of mechanics of that, and then them starting to play, it really worked. That was a scene where I'm like, I buy it. It let the personalities come in, and you saw both warts and all of everybody, but ultimately they're musicians, and they're really good musicians. And it just kind of built all
and that
that.
scene,
Yeah.
yes. So there's so many good scenes in this film, and that particular was one where, you're kind of hating Bob Dylan at that point because he's made Pete Seeger nervous and kind of like, not done well with his friend, but then he does show up. But then the way he shows up is kind of like, okay, big man's here now. And it's kind of like, okay. And then is he going to completely be a jerk to the guy who was already on the show, the musician, the blues musician? But no, in a way, I mean, he's still the big dog in the room, but they actually play off one another, and it ends up being kind of fascinating how all three then, in theory, have this jam session.
Yeah.
Also nice to see, if this can be believed, later, Bob Dylan, I don't know if he sees him at a festival or maybe runs into a park, but like says hello to him, and they seem to have a good rapport, which is kind of cool that he, kept in touch with him. So who knows? But thank you for making
scene.
me remember.
No, it's a very
that
good scene.
It was great.
Yeah, I mean, again, I thought, God, fine. I don't know any other.
I understand.
I'm not going to say good because again, I just don't feel like it did enough to warrant a good, but it definitely did enough to warrant a fine in that it was serviceable. If it wasn't for the music, I will say this: if the music was not as well done, well performed, and feeling like very authentic performances, I think this movie would have been really kind of rough. But the music made it work as a film. The performances, Chalamet's performance again, I thought was okay. I thought everybody else around him was really good. Okay. So I do feel like everybody else's performance kind of helped elevate his character a bit.
Okay.
Because again, this is a movie where people are reacting to Bob Dylan less than we're seeing Bob Dylan act. It's like it is a reaction film. It's like how is everybody dealing with this character of Bob Dylan? So it's really, I kind of need everybody else's performance to be their A game, and it was. So even if Chalamet's was hit or miss, or maybe not stellar for me, everybody else around him was so good that it made the Bob Dylan character work in this film. So overall, okay, I think we've done enough on this film.
Okay,
I think
fair enough.
We're good. You are more positive on it. I'm not negative. I'm slightly positive. Admitting there are some issues I had with it, but overall I felt it was a fine biopic.
Fair enough.
There we go. Okay. Okay. We still got to do another review, don't we?
We do.
Okay, here we go. Let's go into our second review. That was about a complete unknown opening Christmas Day. So about the time you're hearing this, it should be out and available for people to see. Let's go ahead and go into our next review, which is also another Christmas Day film. Great double feature. I think take the family, take the kids,
Sure.
go see both of these films. We're going to talk about the new Nicole Kidman film, Babygirl.
Good girl. Good girl.
Being a CEO means being a collaborator and a nurturer.
Don't you have to be at work?
Everyone is just waiting for me to buckle under the pressure.
Is now a good time to introduce the interns?
Yeah. Hey, how'd you get that dog to calm down?
I gave it a cookie.
You always have cookies on you.
Why, do you want one?
Babygirl tells the story of Nicole Kidman playing Romy, a high-powered CEO that puts her family and career on the line when she begins a torrid affair with her much, much younger intern, played by Harris Dickinson. We saw Harris Dickinson, I believe, last in the film The Iron Claw. He was one of the wrestler brothers. He was the one that died overseas from illness. I'm familiar with him from the show. I can't remember. Maybe it was either Netflix or Amazon. I can't remember. But Murder at the Edge of the World was a murder mystery series that he was a part of. And there was something else he did too. That
The thing that I didn't remember him from, but when
Triangle of Sadness.
Yes, that's the one
that's
from.
it.
Yeah, that's where I kind of was like, oh yeah, this dude.
Right. And then Nicole Kidman, we know from 85 different movies
She's an
done over the
up-and-comer.
last. Yeah. I think she's got big things ahead of her. So Chris, we have a very. I read an interview with the director of this film after seeing the film,
Excellent.
and it sounded like there were a lot of 80s sex-driven thrillers that were kind of a little bit more of a motivation for this.
Okay.
Fatal Attraction also got brought up as kind of a little bit of a underlying kind of, obviously not going in the murderous side that film does, but there are some tinges, but a little bit on the flipped side of things to some degree.
Okay.
I'm curious, Chris, what you thought of this film. I told you after seeing it, my only suggestion to you was not one to watch with the parents or family.
So you were joking about taking the family to this on Christmas Day.
Very much joking.
Okay.
Please do not take your family
Sure.
to go see Babygirl on Christmas Day. Okay. Christmas Day, not the ideal date I would have expected this to be opening up. B, it's definitely not for families.
Sure.
But given
Counter
all that,
programming, I guess. But
maybe a little bit of that. Given all that, though, Chris, what was your take on Babygirl?
So, yeah, what is my take on Babygirl? I'll say, maybe we revert back to the whole fine phrase that you say.
Okay.
And I think it would probably be less than fine if not for Nicole Kidman's performance. I feel like she gives a really good performance. And some of the ways they treat female characters in this film, there's, her character obviously as being the star of the film, but then there's I don't know, I guess she's she's her assistant in the film.
Esme, played by Sophie
Esme,
Wilde.
yeah. Okay. So their two arcs in the film and how they're portrayed as, I feel like, strong females or females that have positions of power and kind of how that develops in the film. That makes me think this is on the slightly positive side of fine.
Okay.
As obviously, like you mentioned, I can see the inspirations for something like Basic Instinct or Fatal Attraction, some of those things. I never felt that it was really a thriller. There's no murder, as you mentioned.
Right. No, I think those comparisons are more in tone and style
Sure.
than they are in subject matter. So,
and Harris Dickinson, he's good. He's fun. I think he's fun. But yeah, as the Sophia Wilde doing Esme, I thought she was the more interesting character. And I feel like there's interesting stuff going on with Romy, Nicole Kidman's character. Possibly, maybe we would want some more because there's some stuff going on that never really, at least I don't think, is explained. Maybe some like therapy or hypnosis type stuff that's going on.
Yeah, there's a whole bit about her maybe being raised in a like a cult.
Yes.
And a little bit of some hypnotherapy and other forms of therapy she's been going through to kind of deal with that. It's really slightly touched on.
Right.
And,
so
yeah.
There's potential to make something more, but maybe, just giving just enough. And maybe that would have weakened the film to go into that too much. Don't know. I mentioned at the very top of the show, when you were listing all people that were involved in the movies, I listed Antonio Banderas as her husband, Jacob. I really enjoyed Banderas as her husband, Jacob. I thought he was awesome. He has such a recognizable face, but yet I feel like he was, I guess, nuanced enough. So not like, but I liked seeing him in this film.
Okay.
I'll say, I'm curious, and I'll give you a chance to give your reaction here in just a second, but I'm curious if American Psycho was one of the things that the director called out as an inspiration. I say that, in that film, obviously people are killed. But what reminded me of that film was this film's use of music, specifically Never Tear Us Apart by NXS and Father Figure by George Michael.
Yes.
Oddly disturbing, both of them, especially Father Figure when that is used, but effective because it's just so jarring.
Yeah.
And not since a film like American Psycho, when they were using like the music of Phil Collins, had something been so jarring that it will probably, I'll not be able to hear those songs again without thinking of this film. Just like when I think of Phil Collins, I can hear Patrick Bateman talking about like, I can hear. So that I was not expecting that. And that was probably one of the more interesting things from this film for me was the way they used those two songs and just music overall. And you had mentioned to me, I think off mic, about how the person responsible for the score and soundtrack work in the film had done the White Lotus TV series.
Yeah.
And I can see the fingerprints of that happening. I don't have the person's name on the tip of my tongue, but I can definitely see how that helped add to the film.
Cristobal Tapia de Veer.
There we go.
Yeah, is the composer of the White Lotus TV show on Max, but also the composer of this film as well.
So those are a lot of my thoughts. Alan.
So we're going to flip-flop a little
response?
bit on our reviews here. I love this film.
Okay. All right.
I loved it.
So you are more than strongly. Okay,
it.
so go off on 10 minutes uninterrupted.
Okay, here we go.
Uninterrupted.
Start the
how
timer.
much you like it. Yes.
No. This film just worked on many, many levels. Let's start with performances.
Okay.
Look, I think Nicole Kidman's a good actress. I generally like her in almost anything she does.
I will not argue that point.
I think this may be one of the best things I've seen her do.
Oh,
only
wow.
because I thought her character was fascinating.
Well,
there's so many layers. Yes, you're right. It does hint at the whole growing up in a cult. She makes a mention of it to somebody, and you see some like quick images flashing in her head. I kind of like the fact that they don't dwell on it. It's kind of like, yeah, we know there's more going on. We know something's going on in her head, but we don't need it spelled out for us. I think I got a pretty good idea what's going on in her head. Obviously, it led her to the situation she finds herself in now. She's someone who's unable to be satisfied, in a physical relationship. She definitely has some power dynamic issues going on. She's in a very powerful role herself where she gets to command and tell people and direct things, but yet she also wants to be controlled and directed in a way. It's fascinating to me. I love whatever's going on in her head. And I think Nicole Kidman plays it extremely well. Then you flip over to Harris Dickinson. Yeah, it's an interesting role as well. I mean, he gets to really lay in the charisma. I kind of get and I understand what Romy, Nicole Kidman's character, I get her draw to him. and watching his wheels turn as he's realizing what power he's wielding in this situation.
Right.
It's like, yeah, it was really interesting. So I had a lot of fun with this dynamic between these two, and the scenes together I thought were really, really well done.
Okay.
And then I'll echo you on Antonio Banderas. He plays kind of the thankless role in the film, but it's an incredibly important role, especially by the end of the film. And I think he plays it really, really well. Some great supporting actresses. You mentioned Sophie Wilde as Esme, her assistant. Also, Esther McGregor as one of the daughters, Isabel. That's Ewan McGregor's daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, playing one of the two daughters in this. That she herself seems to be going through some identity crisis, or not crisis, but just a little bit of redefining who she is as a person and looking to her mother to kind of act as some sort of guidepost, and whether that's foolish or not to do. So anyway, it's just interesting performances. I like the style of the film. I think the film just had it does lean into a little bit of 80s, erotic thriller format, but yet you're right. It's not a thriller. It's not interested in that. It's interested in really these relationships, these dynamics between these people. And then you called out, Chris, two of my favorite scenes. It was the music. I tell you, I mean, one of my favorite
songs. It's what
songs
helps set the movie.
One of my favorite songs of all time is "In Excess, Never Tear Me Apart." So hearing that go into a montage in a sequence, I'm like, oh yeah, this movie just went up 4 or 5 notches on my books. Then you roll into Father Figure about 10 minutes later, and although that's not one of my favorite songs, the way the song is used in this film,
so creepy.
Oh, it's absolutely creepy. And just the fact that it starts with a very interesting dance from Harris Dickerson as Samuel kind of leading in a hotel room. I'm like, oh yeah, this film knows
like a Magic Mike type.
This film knows exactly what it's doing, and it knows exactly how it wants us to feel and during this whole thing. And I'm like, and it's got it. So I thought this film was great. I really did enjoy it. And I like the fact too that it ends. I'm even trying to remember how it ends, because you've seen it more recently than I have. I think.
Well, it ends without spoiling things. I think it ends.
Yeah, just kind of give me a generality.
Yeah, sure.
Is it, it's with Romy and her husband.
Yes,
that's pretty much it. Okay. Yes. Okay. I think I remember now.
Well, and there's some scenes of Romy at her business and kind of some changes that have happened.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. So that are interesting. And then I'm not sure if it's a co-CEO or a COO. It's an older guy that's somehow involved with the company. And they have some dialogue early on, and then they have it at the end. And it's like, okay, so this is a more female positive supportive film than you might otherwise think,
which I was really happy to see the direction it took at the end. I was afraid it was going to go the other direction, which I don't think would have been as successful and would have made for where the film needed to go by the end. So I was happy with the ending and happy with kind of some of the messaging. I mean, look, there's some commentary about power dynamics between people. I like the fact that they're not afraid to say that, this young man is figuring out how to exude power, and he's preying on someone who, in a way, has some power control issues of her own that are deep seated. But yet, how do they use those to kind of excel better themselves in a way? And definitely by Romy's character at the end, she is a stronger person because of these experiences.
And she makes several comments through the film, because you commented on the whole age gap thing too. Yeah. But she's like, oh, I don't want you to think I'm taking advantage of, it's stated in the film. Yeah. So there's that kind of acknowledgement of what's going on and how, uneasy it makes people feel.
Yeah.
So
I just think there's a lot of interesting psychology going on with all these characters. And, the film surprised me along the way, which is always nice to know. I wasn't always quite sure where it was going, and when scenes happened or actions were made, it kept me alert, kept me aware of what was happening. So that's always good too. Never like a film where I can predict pretty much where everything is going by each step of the way. So I really like it. I think Harris Dickerson's a really good actor. I'm excited to see him do more things. He seems to be kind of on the rise right now, getting a lot of roles and getting a lot of attention. So Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of this film, so I will give it that.
I'll say this: two closing thoughts. Ordering someone a glass of milk as an act of passive aggressiveness, not on my 2024 bingo card, but an interesting thing that happens in the film. So the director, Helena Rain, made Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And I thought that,
Really?
In
I did not know that.
2022. Yep. So this isn't her first film. She embodies Bodies.
What a different type of film.
Right.
Altogether.
Like horror
My
film, but
gosh.
commenting on
Like even a
phone
completely
culture
different
and all this
look
kind of stuff.
Feel to it. It's just, yeah.
But had a lot of like Pete Davidson was in that. So yeah, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And now this is second film. So she's interesting director. I'm curious as to what she'll choose to do next.
No, I'm actually more intrigued now to see that she did something so different. I mean, yeah, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was, I thought I didn't love the film, but I thought it was good, but it just was such a completely different style, tone, look to a film. And,
sure.
But yet this one, I thought she pulled off so amazingly too. So I really liked Babygirl. I found a lot to like out of it.
Okay.
Had a good time with it. Did have to, I'm watching it in my home theater. I've got family, kind of been going in and out of the house at times. I had to kind of do a lot of pausing, a lot of, hey, you might not want to walk in right now. Cause it is, I joke about it at the beginning, but it is like, it's pretty
explicit.
It's pretty explicit, pretty raw. So just a fair warning to everybody watching, and I know they use the word daring so much when they talk about older actresses or actors doing roles that are a little more explicit. It was pretty daring for Nicole Kidman. I thought it was a really, quote, daring performance, and I admired her for it. I thought it was really good, but yet she played it with such ease. And I thought, her performance, I actually threw her name out as a nomination for Best Actress.
I'll throw out
for this role because I thought she was really good.
I'll throw out what I assume was at least one, maybe a team of 5 or 6 intimacy coordinators.
Oh, right.
They should get Oscars for this.
Yeah,
film.
that one probably needed. Between this film, Honora, there's a couple other films this year. I think intimacy coordinators had a banner year. So, 2024 was their year.
Agreed.
Their year to shine for sure. Oh boy. Okay. That is Babygirl. Like I said, it opens on Christmas Day also. So take your pick. You got a couple films on Christmas Day to go check out. And it sounds like we're a little flip-flopped. We both liked both of the films we reviewed. You are more positive on A Complete Unknown. I am more positive on Babygirl. But overall, we're still saying these are two good films. They're two films worth checking out for sure. So,
and your third option will probably be Nosferatu, which is also
that's right.
Christmas
that comes
Day,
out,
so.
and we've already reviewed.
Yeah,
that.
we have.
So
previous show.
We both were on the same page with Nosferatu.
Yes.
Very positive on both sides. So, man, it's a good Christmas day for
it's
the
gonna
movie
be a good
theater.
Christmas day. Yeah,
so. Not bad. People got some good choices there. That's awesome. All right, Chris. Well, that was our 2 reviews. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's a lot of trailers. We got a lot of trailers to cram in before the end of the year. Some new ones came out this past week. So we're going to take a peek at 3 of them in particular. So stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films. We'll be right back in just a minute.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Hello and welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. We had our reviews of A Complete Unknown and Babygirl in the first half of the show. Chris, let's turn our attention to some movie trailers. We have our love-hate relationship with trailers. Do they give away too much? Yes. Do they create unfair expectations for films yes, absolutely. But do we still kind of enjoy watching them? Especially if
it's a guilty pleasure.
Especially if we don't know anything about the film and it's our only opportunity to kind of see what we're in store for.
Exactly.
Sure.
But conversely, sometimes it might get Chris more excited for a Marvel movie because I'm like, oh, this
That's
looks
true.
like they're taking a different tack with it. Hey, maybe I want to see this. So you never know.
Well, that was a nice segue, although not a Marvel film, but close to it. We're going to talk about, let's do our first trailer.
Okay.
This is a film I'm very curious about.
Okay.
It is a film. It's a superhero movie. And it is the new Superman movie, directed by James Gunn. If kind of as a little quick backup,
Mr.
reminder,
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mr. Guardians of the Galaxy from Marvel. He also did the Suicide Squad for DC.
The second one.
The better one. And, and he's now taken the reins of the whole DC film universe.
He's the Paul Feig of the DC universe. Would that be?
No, Kevin Feige.
Kevin Feig.
Paul Feig is a bridesmaid
dude.
director
Right.
and some comedy.
Kevin Feige.
Yeah. Kevin Feige, I believe,
okay.
is the kind of landlord of the Marvel universe.
Right.
Now James Gunn is his
he's
equivalent
Okay.
on the DC side.
Gotcha.
So even though they have released an animated show on Max that was like the first one under James Gunn's direction, of, Creature Commandos.
Have you seen this?
I have not.
Okay.
Superman though is supposed to be the first like movie, like big movie that's kind of kicking off his whole DC universe film.
Gotcha.
Film universe. We have.
Is it in effect restarting the DC universe kind of? So like Justice League goes away. Zack Snyder never
all
existed.
that is gone.
All that's gone.
All that's gone. This is a new take. Although my understanding is this film is not a redo of Superman and his origin. I think it's supposed to allude to all the Christopher Reeve films are still kind of there.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
And there's a part of the trailer that I think will clue you into that. So it's not a reintroduction of Superman. It's more of
So we're not getting an origin story here.
I don't believe we're getting an origin story.
Okay.
So we are getting Superman played by David Cornsweet, which he was in Twisters.
And has an amazing name.
I think I'm pronouncing it wrong. Maybe it's Cornsway.
Doesn't matter. Corn Sweat is more amazing, but doesn't matter. It's amazing.
Cornsway. It's one of those three pronunciations.
All are amazing.
He was also in Pearl. He was the projectionist in Pearl.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Twisters. He was one of the quote bad guy hunters. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway.
So now he is center stage.
He is Superman.
Okay.
He is Superman. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch the teaser trailer for Superman.
And I have not seen it. So this will be my first experience with the trailer. I actually waited to see this because I knew we'd probably talk about it on the show.
Very smart man, Chris.
Hey.
Smart man. You're doing it all for the show.
That's
I
right.
appreciate that. Here we go. The teaser trailer for Superman.
Crypto. Home. Take me home.
Superman.
All right. So that is the teaser trailer for Superman, the new James Gunn DC Universe movie. Chris, initial quick take thoughts.
I feel like it's unfair. I feel like you should probably have the quick take thoughts. You are a bigger Superman dude, I think, than I am, and you're a bigger comic book guy than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But you are doing this segment, so I feel like I imagine that James Gunn just gave comic book nerds an early Christmas present if they've seen this trailer. Yeah, because it came out last week.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine them not being more excited from this trailer. I could be concerned. I think it looks good.
Okay.
I could be concerned that it does seem like it may suffer from a little bit too much fan service and that it seems like there are a lot of bad guys. Like, with sequels, you're like the first movie, they do like one villain. And then with second movie, they do two. And then it's just like they just multiply. This just looks like it is a laundry list of villains, which could be a problem, balanced story-wise. But I think it
So
looks
let me.
cool. And then there's also the dog, which very crypto, very daring to put that in the film,
in the
period.
in the teaser.
And then put it in the trailer and give him kind of like a big part. But I don't know. I think it kind of works. There are a lot of dog people, so those are my initial thoughts.
All right, got to put on my comic book nerd hat for a second.
Take it away.
Okay, first off, Chris.
Yes.
Most of the characters you saw in there you were referring to as villains are not actually villains. They are other superheroes.
Okay.
The only villains in the film, Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult.
Which I guess I'd forgotten he was in the film, but I was like, oh, yeah.
And then there's the giant dragon thing.
Okay.
That's the villains.
Okay.
All the other characters are actually other superheroes that make
Which I
up
realized
kind of the
there was
Justice
Hawk
Society.
Girl.
There's a Hulk Girl. There's a Green Lantern version of a guy.
So he is not a villain.
Generally speaking, no.
Okay.
Now, the film could take a different take on it, but my understanding is these are all other superheroes that are kind of in a
but
group.
Same problem.
No, I wholly acknowledge that
It's like an
a lot
X-Men
of people.
problem, and it
It's
gets
lot of
or a
characters.
Justice League problem right out of the bat.
My
Gets watered
hoping is
down.
that these are all like in one scene, kind of one sequence. Because I think the film seems to be saying, hey, look, we want to get past the whole origin.
Right.
We want to get past the whole who is Superman type of question. It's more of a, no, in this universe, it seems like, at least from the film, everybody knows who Superman is. Superman is a known quantity. And it's like, so let's just go ahead and dump him into this bigger world. And I like the fact that the film shows, hey, we're going to be a little playful with him too. Like him having a super dog in the comics was totally a 1940s and 50s thing
that you would not think anyone would touch with a 10-foot pole.
But James Gunn's like, no, we're going to totally do it in this film. We're going to have fun with this movie as well as make it a serious endeavor. So
which I think here's my hope. Again, there again, downside of trailers, like you mentioned, can get your expectations high. And I will be sad if this is not the case, because then it wouldn't have revealed too much. I really want that to be the opening scene of the film.
Yeah.
Is what we saw in the trailer, because that to me would be an amazing way. He's already Superman.
Yeah.
He's already, because I think they kind of tease it a little bit where they show something crashing. You're like, oh yeah, but it's in the Arctic, which you're like, well, it crashes in a cornfield, originally for the. But no, it's like, no, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
I think that would be an amazing way. And I guess it
could be fun. Yeah.
I think that would be an awesome way to start the film. But I am a little sad that maybe they've spoiled it by the trailer. But still, I am excited.
I got a feeling.
It has made me excited to see the James Gunn film.
I'm happy the fact that I don't know the plot.
Right. And I'm going to try
I know
to remain
Lex
ignorant.
Luthor is a bad guy. Okay, cool. I get that. But that's pretty much any Superman film. So, so we will see. I am optimistic. I think this looks good. I like the fact that it's bright colors and it's fun looking and it's
true.
Like where
it's not a gloomy Christopher Nolan looking Batman film with Superman or something.
Right.
Sure.
And you had the whole what was the Justice League? Who was the guy who did all
Mr.
those?
Zack Snyder.
Yeah, Zack Snyder's. It was all just so depressing looking and dark and gloomy and all that. I'm like, no, this is like super bright.
There was the one that I think I may be the only person alive, other than probably the people that made the film and that liked it. And I cannot even remember who directed it. The Batman versus Superman.
Oh, that was Zack Snyder as well.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that I actually liked.
That was of the Zack Snyder movies. That was my favorite. But
I mean,
not saying a lot. But.
The whole creature that came at the end, Doomsday. That was terrible. But I thought there was a lot of other stuff in the film I liked. So.
Yeah, but no, I'm happy with this take on Superman. I hope this lives up to it. I'm excited.
And doesn't come out until the summer. Yeah. So
it's still got a ways out, but a big movie like this, you gotta tease it 6 or 7 months in advance.
Marketing is key.
Doing. Yeah. All right, Chris. That was our first trailer. That was Superman by James Gunn.
Okay.
Let's take a little turn here.
So it is just Superman too. No colons, no nothing. Just Superman.
Superman.
All right.
Yep. All right. This next film is a very different film. It is by Studio A24, which I know we are fans of. The film is called Death of a Unicorn. Okay.
I don't think I know anything about this film.
Good. So. It stars Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd.
Okay.
It is a black comedy.
Okay.
Directed by Alex Sharfman. And it follows Elliot and Riley, who are a father and son and daughter that accidentally kill a unicorn.
Oh.
That's all we're going to say. It also stars Richard E. Grant. So let's take a look at the trailer for Death of a Unicorn.
The Leopolds donated this entire nature preserve. And they care about a lot of things, not just pharmaceuticals.
Fine. I will sit there and smile.
Sorry, we're late.
What happened? You walked from the airport or what?
It's perfect timing.
I need you to act like everything is fine.
Is there something in your car?
A lot of species in this area are rare.
What exactly are we saying this is, though?
I think we know exactly what it is.
A horse-like mammalia.
With some sort of protrusion or growth.
It's a fucking unicorn.
All right, so that is Death of a Unicorn. Chris, I'll be honest. I saw this trailer and I think Chris Fry's going to like what he's seeing here. Am I on board with this?
Oh, totally. Use of the Beach Boys song. Awesome. Yeah. Only concern is I know too much, but which happens with trailers, but I'm glad I'm aware of the film now because now I have something to look forward to. And that's not a sequel or existing IP that they're trying to bring. No. I probably will have to reconsider making my list of when does it come out? So much going on in the trailer. I didn't even catch the date.
I missed that as well. But hold on. I will tell you because my intern is running into the room feverishly to give me this information.
I mean, I'm going to have to
hurry up. Spring 2025.
Okay. So okay. Yeah. I may have to rejigger my year-end list that I always do every year. My top 10 anticipated films for 2025. Right. This may jump onto that list because I was not previously aware of it. So thank you for bringing that trailer.
Quite welcome.
Attention.
Now we will watch no more about it until the film comes out.
Or try not to.
Try not to anyway. But
we're pretty good about not doing second trailers anyway.
No. We got to do the first ones that are the biggest like teaser trailers and then
let it be.
Don't go into the ones they do that are always like recap the entire plot of the film, a month before release. So try to avoid those.
I will say, I guess there is going to be a little bit of a theme about pharmaceutical companies and maybe corporations in general that may lend it to be a little more A24ish, but just kind of doing an outright what seems to be comedy. Not that,
comedy with maybe some / horror fantasy comedy.
Yeah. I mean, there again, A24, one of my favorite studios going. So, looking forward to it.
Oh, side note.
And the cast looks amazing.
Yeah, the cast looks great. Side note, harkening back to our review of Babygirl.
Yes.
The offices where the Nicole Kidman character runs, many of those scenes shot in A24's offices.
Really?
So those are actually A24's offices that the film is being shot in many of the scenes. Anyway,
interesting.
Small world. Just wanted to mention that. Okay. Last trailer we're going to do, last part of our show here. Do have one more trailer. It is for the film 28 Years Later.
Okay.
Now, this is the third in a trilogy of the 28 blank later trilogy of zombie movies.
Days and weeks, right?
They're days, they're weeks, and now we're years.
You and I both seen Days.
Yes.
I don't think either one of us has seen weeks.
I've not seen weeks.
Okay.
But this one returns director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland, who did the first one together. They did not work on the second one.
Big fans of both.
Yeah,
people.
absolutely.
And I wasn't aware there again, you hear all this bluster around the internet. I wasn't aware that Garland and Boyle still I thought there was a falling out, but it doesn't sound like maybe there is. Because I know they used to work together and then they didn't. Garland went off and made Ex Machina and made Annihilation. And I thought they'd kind of gone there, but it's cool that they're partnering.
No, they're coming back in. So the
third
installment of this franchise.
That's awesome.
Danny Boyle would be the director and Alex Garland the writer. They were both executive producers on the second movie.
Okay.
Just not directly involved.
Gotcha.
This one is, we've got Aaron Taylor Johnson, Craven the Hunter.
Right.
I like the fact that that's how I'm going to refer to him now. It's Craven the Hunter.
He's in Nosferatu, but yes.
But it's Craven the Hunter. I mean, that's how everybody knows him as.
Right.
No, I joke. I never saw Craven the Hunter. I should not bash the film. It's gotten horrible reviews. It made no money whatsoever. But I can't bash a film I haven't seen. So Aaron Taylor Johnson, I apologize. Your work in Craven may have been the best thing that you've ever done, and I don't know because I haven't seen it yet. Gotcha. So Aaron Taylor Johnson, Jodie Comer, she of Killing Eve, and then The Last Duel, and
Bike Riders. Oh, yeah.
And Ralph Fiennes, Ray Fiennes, Conclave, Yeah, he's having an interesting choice of some roles this last year or so.
Yeah.
We've talked about.
I would not have expected him to pop up in this, but okay.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, so Cillian Murphy was star of the first film, 28 Days Later. Is saying that although original movie star Cillian Murphy has been reported to be reprising his role as Jim, in addition to being an executive producer, he appears absent from the trailer and is not listed as a cast member in the promotional material. So don't know what's going on there.
Okay.
Okay. So just that being said.
Interesting.
Let's check out the trailer for 28 Years Later. I'm excited because I really like Danny Boyle as a director.
And he hasn't done anything in a while.
Yeah, I think the last film he did
2,
was
maybe?
Yesterday.
Okay.
That was the Beatles film.
Right. I can't remember if that was before or after
I don't remember
Trainspotting
either.
2. But yeah.
And I did not care for Yesterday. Don't think it worked. I never saw Trainspotting 2. So
I really liked it, actually.
I
yeah.
feel like I've kind of jumped off the boiled bandwagon. I need to get back on.
Sure.
So I need something good, and this could be what serves that purpose. So let's check out the teaser trailer for 28 Years Later. Here we go.
Auntie, what's going on? Jimmy, sit still, keep quiet, and do not move from this spot.
All right. So that was the teaser trailer for 28 Years Later. Chris, does this pique your interest at all?
Yes. I would be interested to see it anyway, just because the parties involved. We mentioned how Garland and Boyle are reuniting. Do I think it will be one of my top 10 of 2025? It comes out in the summer. No. Mm-hmm. But I will enjoy seeing it as kind of a thrill ride, popcorn type event. We don't do awards. I think we, at one point back when we used to kind of do like top fives or whatever, we maybe talked about some of our like top 5 favorite trailers ever, or like how well done. Like I feel like we did that as kind of like a news type thing one time. This trailer, I feel like deserves to be in contention for like if there are 4 awards, because it couldn't be a better trailer.
Yeah,
because it references the other 2 movies, but not like direct. But it's just really, really, really
well, and it's
well
got
made.
the creepy countdown happening as kind of a throughput
with the woman's voice. Yeah.
It doesn't give away any sense of a plot. Mm-mm. It has some interesting imagery that kind of just makes you go, "Ooh, I wonder what that is," but it doesn't tell you, which is great.
Starting off with the Teletubbies.
Yeah, right.
You're like, what is this?
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a good trailer. It was a good trailer.
Yeah, it's an amazing trailer.
I tell you. Having been, so here's the thing. I know the first 2 films all take place relatively soon, obviously after this breakout of zombie stuff, like one within a month, or no, hours later, and then one within weeks later, which would have been
days and
then weeks. So you're still within a year.
Right.
This is obviously many, many years later. And you can look at this trailer and say, okay, well, The Walking Dead as a TV show, it's kind of what this time is representing in this film. What gives me hope in this film is that where The Walking Dead as a TV show was okay.
Was the time frame with that like they've been in this thing?
It had been at least a couple years.
Okay.
There have been some years since everything kind of
went bad,
went to hell. Yeah,
right.
But I like with this is that Alex Garland just knows how to make something interesting, and I don't want to say it's not bizarre, but just there's enough imagery, there's enough things in there. I'm like, ooh, something's going to be interesting in this film. There's going to be an interesting take on this form of civilization, and this community, this village, whatever it may be, and that's what I'm excited about. So I think it looks good.
It gives you glimpses of different characters that may be. I mean, you see Ray Fiennes, you see Aaron,
but we don't know anything about him, which is great.
Mr. Craven.
Aaron
Taylor Johnson.
That's right. Mr. The Hunter is how he prefers to be called. So
I'm actually wondering, we've talked about different actors in the past. Cannot remember the guy's name off the top of my head who's in Twisters and in Hitman. And I said Hitman.
Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell, thank you. And excuse me, Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yeah.
But where Hitman was the film, I was like, okay, I like Mr. Glenn Powell now.
Yes.
Like, he's a star. He's been a good, but like, I'm now like,
You're a fan.
I'm a fan now.
You're a Glenn Powell fan.
I'm curious if 28 years later will make me say, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Craven the Hunter. I'm actually, because he has been around for a while. I think Kick-Ass was one of his first things he did. Yep. He was in Anna Karenina. He was in Nosferatu. But I'm never like, ooh, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Oh, okay.
I've never been.
Ooh, Mr. Craven the Hunter. I've never. Yeah. But I'm wondering if I'll be like, okay, no, he's done good work. It's just not stuff I generally. But like, I'm wondering if this will be something that.
I have not been the biggest fan of his work.
Okay.
And I'm kind of in the same boat. I'd like for something to really stand out with his work to make me say, okay, yeah, the guy's got it. He's a good actor. And I'm waiting for that. So
And
maybe this will be it.
Honestly, I'll give the disclaimer Alan gave. It could have been Craven the Hunter. That could have done it for me.
It could have been. Again, I refuse to bash a film I haven't seen.
Right.
I can't do it.
Right.
I can joke about the marketing of the film. I can joke about whatever. But I mean, the film itself, Craven the Hunter is J.C. Chandler. I mean, he's a good director. He knows
Russell
how to make
Crowe's
good
in it
movies.
too.
Yeah. So it's like, could be good. I don't know, but the reviews are not saying it's good. But I'm still holding out judgment myself. I will watch it one day.
We need to do what you being more of the pro in this now. What is that? So it's not it's the Sony Marvel
the Sony
universe?
Spider-Verse.
Okay.
Yep.
So at some point,
Sony's
I think
got ownership. Sony owns the rights to have Spider-Man
adjacent
movies.
Okay.
They share with Marvel. They basically have licensed the actual character of Spider-Man back to Marvel. So Marvel does the Spider-Man movies in partnership with Sony. Sony's got the rights to do all the other Spider-Man related films.
That's what's gifted us the 3
that are not
Venom
Spider-Man.
movies.
Oh God, we have 3 Venom movies. We had Madam Web, we had Morbius, and now we got Craven the Hunter.
Okay, and so at some point, you and I need to watch all of them. I've seen
really?
you and I. We reviewed Venom.
Did we?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. I know
sure.
It's faded.
Sure.
But I don't think I've seen the second, third. I didn't see Madam Web. I did
seen
catch
Madam
Morbius.
Web.
You've seen, okay, now I've seen Morbius.
You saw Morbius.
Okay.
I saw Madam Web.
Okay.
Yeah. And when Craven the Hunter comes out on online, probably in the next few hours, we will check that out.
Okay, but at some point we should revisit and give fair due.
No, I agree. There again, I'm cracking on it just because it's Craven the Hunter. It's not a film that fans were clamoring for. I mean, it's not. As a Spider-Man fan myself, I still don't understand making these movies about these villains and trying to turn them into anti-heroes.
Other than it just be a money grab.
Not having Spider-Man in the film. That makes no sense to me whatsoever, but whatever.
Got you.
But again, I'm willing to say, hey, maybe it's a good movie. Maybe there's something to it. We'll see.
1 to 5, Madam Web.
One's the lowest.
Oh, man.
2.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there are a couple moments I liked in it.
Okay. All right.
But yeah,
at some point we're gonna have to revisit that universe.
Yeah, I don't really want to, but we'll do it. All right. Anyway, back to Mr. Taylor Johnson. Yes, could this be the film that gives him a starring lead that we're really taken by? We'll see. I don't know. I saw you point to the screen at one point. Yes, that. I feel like I spotted.
Yeah, Cillian
I think
Murphy,
they're building a mystery around his character, and I think that's where they're going. Yeah. Okay, so that is 28 years later. That film is coming out also in the summer. So June 20th. So we got June 20th for 28 years later. We got July 11th, I think it was, for Superman. So 2 summer movies. And then Death of a Unicorn was sometime in the spring. So we're kind of looking out a little bit. None of these films are coming really quickly, but it's the time of year we want to get excited about 2025.
Absolutely.
So there we go. There's a few to keep our eyes on. And that will wrap us up for today, Chris. We had our reviews of A Complete Unknown and of Babygirl, and we had trailers for Superman, 28 years later, and Death of a Unicorn. Chris, there's a lot that people could want to interact with us about. Maybe they have issues with either of our takes on either of the 2 reviews that we gave earlier in the show. Maybe there's some other trailers that people think we ought to be checking out. A lot of things they could dialogue with us with about how can they go about doing so.
You may tell us that we never need to reference the Sony Marvel Spider-Man adjacent universe again, you can do so by emailing info@footcandle.org. Send us an email there. You can also follow us on Facebook, Foot Candle Film Society, Instagram, Threads, we're Foot Candle Film. We're also on Blue Sky. Alan and I do tend to log things on Letterboxd, so you can follow us on there as well. Do us a favor. Give us a star rating, write a review, share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on, because it'll help us reach new listeners. We'd appreciate it. Hope you all have a wonderful holiday. We'll see you back in 2025.
That's right. Remember, next time we get back together, it'll be our year-end 2024 recap episode. We will have our best of both films, performances, directors, and our most overlooked or underappreciated surprise film, as well as our biggest disappointment. So lots to share. Did you have something else, Chris?
No, and I was going to say, and we'll actually be in the calendar year in which the 2025 Foot Candle Film Festival will take place.
We'll have that too.
September 19th through the 28th.
That's right. Big festival coming up in next September. So go ahead and mark your calendars. More details
when you
to
get
come
your
soon.
new 2025 calendar, because, your aunt will probably give you this calendar for the year.
Flip to September.
And just mark those
Go ahead
dates.
and mark it out.
That's right.
Just put a big line that I am busy that entire last week of September.
Exactly.
That way you make sure you will not miss it.
That's
I
right.
think that's a good move. Good move, Chris. All right. Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you in 2025.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.